If you go to Northern Arizona University, or even live in the general Flagstaff area, you've likely seen this guy, or even this guy. Now, when you see this guy, what name do you give him? Some would call him Louis, but others, Luis. Flagstaff, Arizona, home to many different cultures, from the melting pot mix of people in the university to the founding lumberjacks, railroad workers, and families who helped build this city. Flagstaff isn't just a place you pass through, it's a place you look at. You feel it in the murals downtown, painted across brick walls and alleyways, stretching over buildings that have been standing for generations. Art is everywhere here. It's on coffee shop walls, on the sides of old railroad buildings, on storefront windows, even tucked into corners you only notice if you slow down. What makes Flagstaff different is that the art doesn't feel separate from the community. It feels personal. And Latino and Chicano communities have been a big part of that story. Long before murals became popular, Latino labor helped build this town. All through the US, there's already an existing narrative and ideas about Latino communities. It frames them as problems to be managed and calls them criminals in the making, or people whose history's not even worth teaching. Some history refuses to leave. It sticks to walls, flows through the air, and imprints on the canvas of art pieces. At NAU, there exists a program designed to challenge those ideas using counter-storytelling. Counter-storytelling is a method of academic, social, and political analysis that uses personal stories and narratives to challenge and expose dominant stock stories that are spread to marginalize or dehumanize groups. The existence of these programs in ethnic studies promote connections with people's own culture and the culture of others. Dr. Pedro Antonio Cuevas, or Doc to his students, teaches ES 160 and hopes to break through the cycle of oppression with the best tool that there is: education. Each week, Doc teaches NAU students the history of Flagstaff, oppression and education, and important figures in the Latin community. In his Latino and Chicano studies classes, students spend the first weeks of the semester studying films, articles, and books about oppression as it relates to the Latino and Chicano marginalized groups. This is just half the class, however. As described in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, one of the assigned readings, once someone is made aware of the oppression, the next step to liberation is action. For the last 5 weeks of the class, students create murals to express their feelings on the counter-stories they've learned and the culture that they're exploring. This not only reinforces the topics students have learned, but share them to all who pass these wonderful pieces of art. And who better to speak on these pieces of art than the artists themselves?
So our project is a piece right behind me, and we're doing it to represent Chicanos and Latinos within our community nowadays, but also in the past and what we've had to go through. This includes the farm workers movement, which we have learned about a lot in this class, and that's kind of what stemmed this, and the current ICE riots and protests.
Today we're making a piñata, and it's going to be in the shape of a butterfly. Half of it is planned to be grapes representing the farm workers movement, and then the other half is going to be marigolds. The motivation behind it is to represent the migration of the butterflies and also how the workers just worked really hard to move over here. I really resonate with this project just because my grandma was a field worker when she first came over here, so it's really personal to me.
So my group and I are working on a poster, and it's pulling inspiration from Rosie the Riveter. In the class, we've learned a lot about the UFW fight, and we wanted to pull from what you don't usually see from the counter-narrative, and we wanted to really explore the women who were involved in this fight, specifically like Lola Huerta, because for me personally, I didn't know who she was. And I thought that it was really inspirational to see her up there, and I wanted to show that representation and that side of the story. I am actually Mexican myself, so I thought this class specifically was really cool for me to be able to explore my roots. We're able to explore history, and it's not just for Hispanic or Latinx students, it's for everyone to come and be invited. Like even this space we share right now, it's full of everyone who's just interested and who wants to be here.
Counter-stories created in this class expand to much more than just paint. One group used the lessons in liberation to compose an original song. Each of these projects, while wildly different, show a common theme. Liberation can only be achieved as an act of love. While the stories represented in these works contain hate and pain, it's not directed towards a new target, but rather processed and transformed into beautiful works of art. This is another lesson found in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. The act of breaking the cycle of oppression is beneficial to all involved. This is because in order to oppress someone, you must view humans as something to be used. This is impossible to do without subconsciously viewing yourself in the same way. So in breaking this cycle, the oppressed not only frees themselves, but even frees their oppressors in an act of love for one another. Breaking away from counter stories is something that Doc himself has experience with firsthand.
My name is Dr. Pedro Antonio Cuevas Martinez, assistant teaching professor here at NAU. Being a person of color on the east side, when I was young, we were met with low expectations. So, teachers didn't look at me and think, oh my God, this kid is so smart, he's gonna end up being a professor at the university. It was the opposite. When I went to one of the local high schools here, there was a period of time where I wanted to go to college, but I was discouraged from that because the counselor was like, well, maybe you shouldn't go to college, you should just stick with your job at Safeway in the produce department because that's what your people are good at. There was this low expectation, there was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and so I got into a lot of trouble, barely graduated high school, flunked out NAU, had a lot of problems with the local police department, and I was fortunate when I was 19, I just bounced, and I was able to redefine and create my own narrative through education out in California. Well, I had a cousin that sat me down one day and she was like, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna end up dead or in jail. And nobody had ever put it to me in those terms. And it was as if the facade of that narrative that been constructed. We talk a lot about in our class around majoritarian narratives and counter narratives. The majoritarian narrative is designed to oppress and to keep people confined into a box. The majoritarian narrative can be disruptive when the counter narrative is elevated. And so this was what happened in that situation. Because then it was pointed out to me, it's like, well, this is what's happening. And so that was a time where it was like an epiphany, where I'm like, I'm gonna go do something. And so ethnic studies and a lot of the work that we're doing here is like, let's tell our own stories. And let's tell it the way that it actually happened. It's the stories of the people, by the people, for the people, from the people. I think that's the biggest thing, is to tell your own story, don't let somebody else tell your story for you. Be your own author.
Culture is all around us, and it's viewed differently by everybody. Despite this, one truth stands tall. Education in culture is beneficial to everyone. Ethnic studies courses like ES 160 educate oppressed groups about their oppression. This sets the domino chain in motion to liberate everybody in the cycle. When's the last time you learned about your history? Or somebody else's? It might be time for you to make a mural of your own. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That was a great interview. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully you get some footage out of that.